Most people don't fail financially because they're lazy. They don't fail because they're unintelligent. They don't even fail because they make reckless decisions. Most people fail because they fall into something far more subtle. An invisible trap. A psychological pattern so normal, so socially accepted, that most people never realize they're inside it. This trap doesn't ruin lives overnight. It doesn't cause dramatic collapses or obvious mistakes. Instead, it works quietly. It shapes everyday choices. It narrows ambition without announcing itself. And over time, it keeps people financially average, not struggling, not thriving, just stuck. The trap begins with a simple idea we're taught early in life. Play it safe. Be responsible. Avoid mistakes. Don't take unnecessary risks. On the surface, this sounds smart. And for basic survival, it is. But somewhere along the way, safety stops being a foundation and becomes the goal. People choose jobs they don't enjoy because they feel stable. They avoid opportunities because they seem uncertain. They stay in situations that no longer serve them because they're familiar. Not because those choices lead to growth, but because they reduce discomfort. And slowly, without realizing it, safety replaces progress. This is what makes the trap so dangerous. It feels intelligent. People say things like, "at least it's steady," or "better safe than sorry," or "I'll take risks later when I'm more ready." And society reinforces this thinking. You're praised for being cautious, for not rocking the boat, for being realistic. But financially, comfort has a cost. The longer you prioritize comfort, the less tolerance you have for uncertainty. And uncertainty is where growth lives. Wealth doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from learning how to manage it. Over time, this trap quietly changes how people think. Goals shrink. Dreams get adjusted downward. Ambition turns into maintenance. Instead of asking, "how do I grow?" people start asking, "how do I protect what I have?" They save, but they don't invest. They work harder, but don't think bigger. They stay busy, but don't move forward. Nothing feels wrong, but nothing really changes. Years pass, and one day, people realize they've been maintaining a life instead of building one. What's surprising is who this trap catches. It doesn't usually trap reckless people. It traps responsible ones. People who follow rules. People who plan carefully. People who don't want to fail. In fact, intelligence often strengthens the trap. Smart people are very good at rationalizing why now isn't the right time. Why the risk doesn't make sense. Why waiting feels logical. And the reasoning sounds correct. But financially, logic without action creates stagnation. Knowing better doesn't change outcomes. Doing differently does. The real cost of this invisible trap isn't just money. It's time. Time spent waiting for clarity. Time spent playing small. Time spent hoping conditions will improve. And perfect conditions never arrive. Meanwhile, inflation moves. Opportunities pass. Energy fades. And many people mistake patience for progress. But patience without direction is just delay. Escaping the trap doesn't mean being reckless. It means changing what you optimize for. Instead of constantly asking, "how do I avoid losing?" you start asking, "how do I increase my upside?" Instead of protecting comfort, you protect opportunity. You accept calculated discomfort. You learn before you feel ready. You move before confidence fully arrives. Not blindly, not impulsively, but intentionally. Because growth always feels unsafe at first. And that discomfort isn't a warning sign. It's a signal. The invisible trap isn't fear. It's familiarity. It's choosing what feels normal over what could be possible. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. From that point on, every decision becomes clearer. Not easier, but honest. Because financial freedom doesn't begin when you work harder. It begins the moment you stop mistaking safety for success. Part 1. The need to feel safe. The trap doesn't start with bad decisions. It starts with safety. From a young age, most of us are taught the same formula for a good life. Find a stable income. Stick to a predictable routine. Avoid unnecessary risk. This advice sounds responsible. It sounds mature. And in many ways, it is. Safety keeps food on the table. It keeps stress manageable. It helps people survive. But here's what no one explains clearly. Safety doesn't just protect you, it trains you. Over time, it trains your brain to avoid uncertainty, even when uncertainty is exactly what growth requires. When safety becomes the top priority, every decision starts being filtered through one question. Will this make me feel uncomfortable? And slowly, without realizing it, comfort becomes the goal instead of progress. Financial growth doesn't happen inside perfect conditions. It rarely comes with guarantees. It rarely feels calm at the beginning. And it almost never feels safe while it's happening. Growth usually asks you to try before you feel ready, to act without knowing the outcome, to stay uncomfortable for longer than feels reasonable. But the average mind is wired differently. It prioritizes emotional safety over long-term gain. It wants relief now, not freedom later. So when people are faced with a choice, they tend to choose what feels safest in the moment. They choose steady over scalable. A job that pays consistently feels better than an opportunity that might grow slowly at first. They choose familiar over better. Staying where they are feels easier than learning something new and risking failure. They choose secure over strategic. A predictable path feels more responsible than one that requires patience and uncertainty. None of these choices are wrong on their own. In fact, they make a lot of sense emotionally. But over time, they create a ceiling. Because safety protects what you already have. It doesn't expand what you could become. This is why many people do everything right and still feel stuck. They followed the rules. They avoided mistakes. They stayed responsible. Yet years later, their income hasn't changed much. Their options are limited, and their financial stress hasn't really gone away. Not because they're lazy, not because they're careless, but because they trained themselves to avoid discomfort instead of learning how to move through it. The brain gets very good at whatever you practice. If you practice avoiding risk, you become excellent at staying in place. If you practice choosing comfort, you become skilled at maintaining the status quo. Real financial growth requires a different relationship with safety. Not recklessness, not blind risk, but a willingness to feel uncertain without immediately retreating. It requires trusting yourself more than the structure around you. It requires understanding that discomfort isn't always a warning sign. Sometimes it's simply the feeling of stretching beyond what's familiar. People who build wealth don't feel less fear. They just don't let fear make the final decision. They accept that some seasons will feel unstable, that some choices won't come with reassurance, that progress often looks messy before it looks successful. Safety keeps you protected. But protection comes with limits. And if safety becomes the only thing you value, growth quietly slips out of reach. The goal isn't to abandon security overnight. The goal is to recognize when safety has stopped serving you and started controlling you. Because the people who grow the most aren't the ones who feel safe all the time. They're the ones who learned how to move forward even when they don't. Part 2. Comfort. Masquerading as success. Once your basic needs are met, comfort becomes dangerous. Not painful, not scary. Dangerous, because danger doesn't always feel bad. For many people, life reaches a point where things are fine. You have a stable paycheck, your bills are covered, your lifestyle is manageable, you can afford small pleasures, occasional trips, a new phone, food you enjoy. Nothing feels wrong, and that's exactly the problem. Average finances often feel good enough. There's no emergency, no panic, no immediate pressure. You're not struggling, but you're not really advancing either. Comfort creates a quiet trap. When life feels stable, urgency disappears. There's no reason to push harder, no reason to question your situation, no reason to take risks. Your brain starts prioritizing peace over progress. It whispers, "Don't mess this up. Don't rock the boat. Just keep things the way they are." And that voice sounds reasonable. After all, why risk stability for uncertainty? This is where progress quietly slows. Not because life is bad, not because you failed, but because comfort lowers your hunger. When you're uncomfortable, you think creatively. You look for better options. You're willing to try unfamiliar paths. But when you're comfortable, you optimize for ease. You choose what's familiar. You repeat what works. You avoid disruption. Over time, comfort becomes your definition of success. You stop asking, is this building my future? And start asking, is this safe? That shift is subtle, but powerful. Because safety feels like maturity. It feels responsible. It feels like winning. But safety doesn't compound. It maintains. Average lives are carefully optimized to avoid disruption. Predictable income. Predictable routines. Predictable outcomes. And predictability feels calm, but wealth doesn't come from predictability. Wealth comes from disruption. Learning skills that don't pay immediately, taking risks that don't guarantee results, making decisions that temporarily increase stress. Disruption feels uncomfortable by design. It challenges identity. It creates uncertainty. It forces growth. That's why most people avoid it. Comfort trains you to protect what you have instead of building what you want. Years pass smoothly, paychecks arrive, life stays stable. But progress stalls quietly in the background. One day you look up and realize, I'm still in the same place. Not because you made bad choices, but because you never made disruptive ones. Comfort didn't ruin your life. It just delayed it. This is why doing okay can be more dangerous than struggling. Struggle demands change. Comfort discourages it. The goal isn't to be miserable. The goal isn't to chase chaos. The goal is to recognize when comfort is pretending to be success. Real success isn't feeling safe today. It's building freedom for tomorrow, and that requires intentional discomfort. Choosing growth over ease. Momentum over maintenance. Progress over peace, at least for a season, because comfort will happily keep you average forever. It won't stop you. It won't warn you. It will just make staying still feel acceptable. And the people who escape average aren't the ones who had it hardest. They're the ones who refuse to confuse comfort with success. Part 3. Social mirror thinking. Most people don't measure progress objectively. They measure it socially. Not by numbers, not by outcomes, but by comparison. They look around and ask a quiet question. How am I doing compared to people near me? If everyone around you is struggling, struggle feels normal. If everyone is living paycheck to paycheck, that feels acceptable. If everyone is average, average starts to feel like success. Not because it is, but because it's familiar. This is called social mirror thinking. You don't judge your life by what's possible. You judge it by what's common. And that's a problem. Social mirrors quietly lower your standards. You don't notice it happening. You tell yourself, at least I'm not worse than them. At least I'm doing okay. At least I'm keeping up. Those sentences sound harmless. They're not. They slowly convince you to stop aiming higher. Here's why this trap is so powerful. Humans want belonging. Standing out feels risky. Falling behind feels painful. So we aim to blend in. We match the pace of the people around us. Their habits become normal. Their limitations become invisible. If your circle avoids risk, risk starts to feel reckless. If your circle avoids ambition, ambition starts to feel unrealistic. If your circle settles, settling feels mature. Social mirrors don't show you what's possible. They only show you what's popular. And popularity is not progress. This is why many people stay stuck without realizing it. They're not failing. They're not lazy. They're just measuring themselves against a low bar. A bar set by convenience, by comfort, by consensus. True wealth doesn't grow inside social averages. It grows outside them. It requires uncomfortable standards, personal standards. Standards that don't change based on who's watching. Personal standards ask different questions. How much control do I actually have? How resilient is my income? How dependent am I on constant effort? How long could I survive if everything stopped? These questions don't care what your friends are doing. They care about reality. Most people never ask them. Because once you detach from social benchmarks, you lose excuses. You can't say, well, everyone else is struggling too. You have to face your own numbers, your own decisions, your own responsibility. That's uncomfortable. So most people don't do it. They blend in. They normalize mediocrity. They stay busy instead of becoming better. Belonging feels good, but belonging is not progress. You can belong and still be stuck. You can fit in and still be falling behind. You can look fine socially and be fragile financially. Social mirror thinking rewards similarity. Wealth rewards independence. Independence of thought, independence of standards, independence of direction. The moment you stop measuring yourself socially, everything changes. Your goals get quieter, but higher. Your moves get slower, but stronger. Your path looks strange, but intentional. You stop asking, how do I compare? And start asking, does this actually move my life forward? That question is lonely, but it's honest. Most people never escape social mirror thinking. Not because they can't, but because blending in feels safer than standing apart. And safety feels good, until time runs. Part 4. Short-term reward addiction. Most people don't fail financially because they're irresponsible. They fail because their entire financial life is built around short-term relief. Payday arrives. There's a rush. For a moment, things feel lighter. Bills get paid. Something small gets bought. Stress drops. Just a little. That feeling matters more than we admit. After long weeks of work, the brain wants relief, not growth, not strategy, relief. So spending becomes a reward, not for progress, but for survival. You worked hard. You deserve something, so you buy it. And in that moment, it works. Dopamine hits, Auschwitz. Tension fades, life feels manageable again. That's the loop most people live in. Work, spend, relief. Over time, the brain learns this pattern. Not consciously, biologically. Work becomes associated with spending. Spending becomes associated with peace. And saving, investing, waiting, those don't feel good immediately. So they get pushed aside. This isn't a character flaw, it's conditioning. Modern life trains people this way. Pay cycles are short, ads are constant, everything is optimized for immediacy. One-click purchases, same-day delivery, instant entertainment. The system rewards now over and over again, so average thinking chooses now over later. Not once, but repeatedly. Not because people are weak, because delayed gratification feels like loss when everyone around you is consuming. When you say no today, you don't get applause. You don't feel successful, you just feel left out. That's the hard part. No one talks about. Wealth is built in silence. Long stretches where nothing seems to happen. No visible progress, no validation. You're working, you're saving, you're investing time or money. But from the outside, it looks like nothing. Inside, it feels worse. Because while you're delaying, others are enjoying. They're buying, upgrading, posting, celebrating small wins. And your brain notices. It asks, why not now? Why wait? Why not enjoy life too? So most people give in, again and again. Not dramatically, just slightly. A little spending here, a small upgrade there, a reward after a hard week, and none of it seems dangerous. Until years pass. And you realize the pattern never broke. The income rose. The spending rose with it. The relief stayed temporary, and the future stayed postponed. This is why wealth feels unnatural to most people. It requires going against trained instincts. It requires choosing outcomes that don't reward you emotionally right away. No dopamine, no praise, no feeling of success today. Just quiet consistency. Just restraint. Just patience. Delayed gratification isn't glamorous. It feels boring, lonely, sometimes even pointless. That's why so few people stick with it. Because the reward comes later, and the cost is paid now. Average thinking avoids that trade. Not because it's stupid, because it's human. The system doesn't teach patience. It monetizes impatience. It turns attention into profit, desire into debt, relief into routine. So breaking the cycle requires awareness first. You have to see the pattern, to realize that the urge to spend is often just the urge to feel okay again. Not happiness, not fulfillment, relief. And relief is expensive when it's bought over and over. Wealth isn't built by denying yourself everything. It's built by understanding which pleasures cost you your future and which ones don't. It's built by retraining the brain to tolerate waiting, to sit with discomfort, to delay applause. Because the people who win financially aren't the ones who never want things. They're the ones who can say, not yet, and mean it. So if this helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Stay focused, stay consistent, and keep building a future you'll be proud to look back on. Your journey continues from here.